Hello, this is Publishing Without Supervision podcast. I am your regular host, Erica Conroy, and as usual, Xavier is not here at this time of the month because it is the end of the month where we talk with wonderful author Zoe York about the news roundtable for the past month. So, hi Zoe, welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me.
Always a pleasure, always a pleasure. You're stuck with us forever. Okay, so let's get down to business. Let's see. We'll start with the romance and erotica publisher that was just a few days ago charged for manipulating book sales. So I'm not sure how to say this person's name, so don't take it as canon. So I think it's Yana Karetko, owner of JK Publishing, was arrested and charged with 5 counts of money laundering, 4 counts of felony theft, 9 counts of computer crime, and 3 counts of tax evasion. And all of this came to light when one of the authors for the publisher noticed several discrepancies in her royalty payments, not matching what Yana was telling her in conversation, and brought it to the attention of the authorities. So after further investigation, it was found that she had manipulated quarterly and monthly sales reports from several vendors, and in some instances, this one's really odd, she inflated or exaggerated book sales to authors, making them believe they were selling better than they were. So all in all, about 15 authors are believed to have been victims of this alleged scam, which resulted in more than $125,000 in royalty losses for those authors. So, Zoe, what say
Yeah,
you?
I mean that's awful. And it sounds like it went on for a number of years.
Mm-hmm.
And it just we've talked about this before, right? We've talked about people who have sold their intellectual property, sold their books, signed bad contracts, and then their books either don't sell, or if they do sell, they don't get all of the earnings back to them for various reasons. I hadn't heard of this publisher, so I don't know anything more about it than what was just in the news article. But it sounds certainly like, she was her duplicity was quite extensive, and I think that I think this is another one of those examples where you really need to trust your gut, right? And I mean, obviously, once you're into a contract relationship like that, trust your gut at every stage. But also, like, I wonder if any of these authors, in hindsight, and nobody is ever at fault for getting into one of these situations, particularly, if these contracts went back years ago, the options were completely different than they are today. But in hindsight, sometimes you have a gut feel, and you recognize it in hindsight, and at the time you ignored it. And so it's just it's a cautionary tale for anybody who's looking at a contract today, this week, this year. Trust your gut. If anything feels wonky, if anything feels anything less than completely professional and completely to your advantage, don't sign away your intellectual property like this.
Yeah, and it goes into quite a lot of detail in the affidavit, which we'll include a link to on our website, pwspodcast.com. Yeah, so the 18 charges include snippets of online conversations that were had with the defendant and the authors, and it seemed like they had quite a friendly relationship going on. Like, oh, your sales are this awesome, and it looks like your other books are picking up, and the authors were all doing the squee thing, and the defendant was doing the squee thing. So there was quite a lot of instances of that. That was put into the evidence. And it's kind of like, well, on the one hand, if your publisher's distant from you, you might start thinking, what's going on? But on the other hand, if your publisher's like in regular communication, it's kind of hard to get that feeling of, something's not quite right. And unless they say something, which is how I think this author found out, she was saying, "Oh, you've sold this many," but when the actual reports were coming in, the report didn't match up to the number, the inflated number
Right.
that the defendant had said. But then it was just weird. It was like, why are you saying I, as the author, not me particularly, but
Mhm.
yeah, has been selling so well, but then I haven't been selling so well, but then you've been underreporting, because I believe she was also underreporting the income
Yeah.
to the tax as well.
Yeah.
It just didn't
That
make sense. Why
that's
did
I mean,
you
that
defraud like
it's a
that?
classic con man. It's a classic, um, like the Ponzi scheme thing. You know, you take money from new people and you give it to people who are going to get you more. Like, I mean, if you know an author who is going to write you more books or is going to recommend you to their friends, that you know that, oh, this is a great publisher, right? You
Mhm,
inflate their numbers, you pad their numbers at the point when they're going to benefit you, and then
mhm,
you take that away from that later on when you give the royal. I mean, and you know, this was particularly scammy, right? But
mm,
it goes to show that really you're at the mercy of whoever's in charge of your accounting, be it Amazon, be it iBooks, be it a publisher. You know, it it's actually pretty easy, and we've seen it from Amazon all the way down. We've seen people call out reports as being inaccurate, and only because they've been called out are they corrected. You know,
mhm,
we must be vigilant of all of our numbers, our storefront numbers, as well as the reported numbers. And we need to know what those mean. I talk to authors on a regular basis who have no idea what an estimated number of sales would be for a rank of 1,000 on the Amazon storefront. And it's about 150 units moved in the last 24 hours. And it rated, weights a little bit depending on your sales history. So if
mm,
you have no sales history, if you just launch a book that day and you sell 150 units, you'll go probably up over the 1,000 rank mark. If you have like 30 days history of selling 1 or 2 units a day and then you sell 150, you probably won't crack the 1,000 because of the weighted average. You don't need to know the specifics of that, and really any guess at what the Amazon rank weighting is just that, a guess. But if
mm.
you have no idea what the approximate units moved in a day are on Amazon, then you are at the mercy of whoever is giving you your sales numbers.
Yeah, yeah. Also, no, I won't say that. But I just want to also share that I was once caught up in a scam. It wasn't a scam with a publisher, it was a scam with one of those people who, organizes multi-author book bundles. And
Mm-hmm.
everything seemed the up and up. She'd done a couple. She'd been really friendly all over the place. She was on book boards and other forums, and she was answering questions all over forums and being generally helpful. And we even had her on the Self Publishing Roundtable podcast, talking about how to organize multi-author book bundles. So I thought, oh, this sounds like a really good idea. I'll get involved in it. And after a bit of time, after the book had published, and she had quite a few other books in various progress along the production line, um, she kind of stopped reporting, and then she stopped answering emails. And it wasn't until the all of the authors who were involved kind of banded together to work out, have you heard from such and such? And have you been paid? Because the earlier ones that had already been published and had received their first payment schedules then stopped getting paid as well. And yeah, if you want to hear more about it, I'll include the link to it on the Self Publishing Roundtable podcast. And you can hear a handful of the authors talk about that whole experience there. Nothing much has really happened about that. We just keep an eye out to make sure she doesn't come back in any of her guises. And yeah, many people reported her to the FBI because it was you know, multiple states, multiple countries, but these things take time, if ever. So, but she's still selling on Amazon, and I think we managed to get those book bundles taken down from Amazon, so she wouldn't earn any further income off them. But we couldn't get that income taken off her, basically. But yeah, no sign
that's
until she
awful.
just flaked at one point, and yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't, you know, it wouldn't have been a huge loss for me, but it could have been a huge loss for other authors, especially those that she, you know, were already a few months have been published
and had put in multiple sets and
yeah.
There's, I mean, we talked about other, you know, other authors that then start to charge money for such things, and all of a sudden they disappear with that money, or they, you know, they kind of use, there was a publicist who was, and I don't, you know, sometimes, I mean, this happens in every industry. Somebody will appear, somebody else will appear and hire them and, you know, be laudatory about their services. Well, it turns out the person B was actually person A under another, you know, or their best friend or their brother or whatever. You want to, you know, you want to do your due diligence and work with somebody who has experience. But like you say, Erica, sometimes it's not up. Maybe it's not a con that was planned in advance. Maybe it's just someone's life fell apart, or maybe somebody got in over their heads, you know? And so sometimes you can't see it coming. And then afterwards you just have to, do your best to minimize the damage, right? Get your content pulled or whatever.
It's the internet. You can't always, you know, tell who is really who, and at the same time, if someone does get hit by a bus, how are you going to know? You know, so I do give people that little benefit of the doubt. If they disappear for a while, maybe they were hit by that figurative bus. But yeah, you can't always do that, I guess. You've just got to go with that gut feeling, whether or not you think they were or not. And I don't know. Right. Shall we move along to the next one? Right. So, you've heard of the TSA, right? Everyone who's flown to America, or even hasn't even flown to America, have heard about the TSA. So TSA basically now want you to take your books out of your carry-on luggage. They're asking you to remove any reading material and food and place them in separate trays, just like you do with your laptop and sometimes with your shoes, before your carry-on luggage is x-rayed. And they say this is because carry-on luggage is becoming more and more cluttered, and books, and presumably food, are too dense to see through. So while they say they aren't interested in what you read, they will flip through the pages in case you're hiding something nefarious in there. Now, I know you have personal experience with this one, Zoe. So please share.
Okay, so I can confirm that in my experience, this has happened 3 times, and not once were they interested in the content of what I was reading. But it was actually pretty annoying. So in February, I flew out of Detroit and into Fort Lauderdale, and then from Fort Lauderdale back to Detroit. And then in April, I flew from Toronto to Boston, and then back from Boston to Toronto. And Detroit, Fort Lauderdale, and Boston are 3 of the airports that are on the TSA's list of places where they're trialing this. Now, when I flew, that was February, and in April, in both times, at that point, they hadn't yet started asking people to take the books out, but they were stopping the scan, like when it goes through. You know, and as soon as they saw books, that carry-on gets diverted and then has to be opened up, and every book inside the carry-on needs to be flipped through. But I'm an author going to book conferences, and I was trying to only travel with carry-on, so I had like literally 20 books in my carry-on. It was like yoga pants and t-shirts and copies of Prime Minister, and I was like, sure. flip through the Frisky Beavers books over and over and over again. And the guy's like standing there and he's turning red. And I'm like, yeah, I bet you're catching some of the words as you. And they just do this. They just go like, let's go.
You need to be watching the video for this.
Yeah. Oh, right.
See,
Yeah.
you can't see any words if he's flipping that fast.
No, he can't see any words. We talked about the series name. He was very interested in why I had like 10 copies of the same book.
Oh, propaganda, Canadian propaganda, obviously.
Canadian propaganda, right? But they just fan through the pages really quickly. Basically, what they're looking for is anything slid inside the pages of the book, because a book is in fact. Right. And it's like, and just think of the potential, right? It's like, it could be like a guerrilla marketing campaign. You slide things inside, but they're looking for explosive material that could be disguised inside the pages of a book, because the book is pretty dense. And when you look at it on the X-ray, because by the third time I was pretty like, 3 times in a row my books get flagged. I'm like, and at that point they hadn't explained what was going on. And I asked other authors, I said, did you have all of your books flipped through? And they're like, no. The second time when I flew from Fort Lauderdale back to Detroit, so the scan happened at the Fort Lauderdale airport, I had just gotten off a writing cruise. Sadie and I had gone on a cruise together, and we were writing like nonstop for 4 days. And it was the end of my trip. And so I like literally just shoved things into my suitcase and like digging the books out. The guy had to like dig out everything in my suitcase to get at the books, which I think is now why they're saying like, heads up, we're going to be doing this, because it took like, quite some time to first get all the books out, go through them all, and then me to repack. And it caused this big backlog. But at that point, I was the only person I'd had the bad luck of it happening before they kind of announced it. But it will change how I pack my suitcase now. I'll make sure that I put the books kind of on top. For me, the real shame is that it makes me want to check a bag, but I have to pay to check a bag, right? Like I was, and I think a lot of people, I was starting to treat my carry-on as much like my primary suitcase as I possibly could, to avoid that check luggage fee. And now, maybe now it's not worth it if you have to pull everything out of it. So
yeah, but on the other hand, they guarantee that your checked in luggage will actually make it to the right location at the right time?
No, they can't. Yeah, it's like that's why you want to carry on, right? And then it never leaves your, you can just hold on to it the whole time. My child has shown up. Come here. Come lie down here. Put your head here. Mom duty. Anyway, so that's my experience with it. It definitely didn't feel, cat mom. You see the cat?
Look at me. Are we just boring our listeners now?
Yeah.
I have the neighbor's cat, like, Mickey. She has
there was a break to talk about pets and children. Anyway, so that's my experience with the TSA thing. I think it's annoying, but I also think it's probably a bit of a non-story.
Well, yeah, in the grand scheme of things, unless, you can start recommending your books to the TSA agent, but
yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you are taking more than 1 or 2 books through, that's not a problem, but you just want to, it took me an extra 20 minutes at one of the airports, less than that at the others. So schedule a bit of extra time.
So you just take your Kindle, for those who are readers as opposed to authors carting around their merchandise.
Well, even like if you're a reader, then probably the book that you're reading is more accessible, right? It's really, for me, traveling as an author who was carrying books as like multiple copies for the destination. So then I had I'd safely wrap them in my yoga pants and tucked them in my, wrapped a scarf around them. So all that had to be dug back out and then piled back in. Luckily, Nothing, no sensitive pieces of clothing or anything like that.
Or just casually slip something, that would make them red-faced in between the pages and hand it to them, and it would be really obvious. I mean, even a thong would still dent some pages to, there you go, a little thrill. Or hide a feminine hygiene product in there and go, what? It's my bookmark.
Yeah.
It's always fun when they have to pull something like that out. This has happened to me before.
The possibilities are endless. It's magical.
Okay. Well, so really a non-event, just it's going to take more time if anyone picks a paperback or, oh God, imagine all the hardcovers. Anyway, let us move along. So what the hell is up with all these fake ebooks on Amazon? I mean, they've always been there, but recently David Gochran blogged about the fake ebook riddled bestseller list on Amazon that he found recently. And according to him, they're pretty easy to spot because they don't usually have reviews. They were maybe published within the last week. And this is a real giveaway, are approximately about 2,500 pages long, and they have no also boughts. And they're usually made from pilfered content from other authors' books. Maybe they've been put through filters or something to not get caught by the plagiarism bots on Amazon. They're also in KU, and they debut as free and then go back to paid to take advantage of the KU pages read and those payouts. So there are people who are diligently reporting these books, but it seems Amazon isn't always able to remove them all or in time. What do you have to say about this one, Zoe?
Yeah, I mean, it's an annoying side effect of the subscription model. They wouldn't be there if Amazon didn't give money to to books that had lots of pages that people opened and flipped through and then closed and returned. Like, it's the as David outlined in his blog, the problem is twofold. One, they're taking a cut from a pot that's shared equally among all page reads, right?
Bulk funded, yeah.
So that does impact on the earnings of other KU authors, but this is not just a KU only problem, because since they use this free model to get, so the way it works, right, is that like they list at free for a couple of days.
Yep.
They get high up on that by ways I'm not sure, and then when they revert to paid because they're in KU, they've already gotten some borrows because the button remains there when it's a free book. And so they pop into KU at a decent enough rank that they continue to get more page reads until the book is removed from sale or whatever. And but this affects everybody who uses free as a loss leader. And the reason why David blogged about it, and you're going to link to that blog post, right, is that he had a bunch of scheduled paid marketing that he had organized for his free book. And he had, luckily, his, I think it was a BookBub, was a couple of days before this kind of flood of these fake books hit but they hit the top 20. There were 5 of them or so in the top 20 free, which pushed 5 legitimate free books out of the top 20. And if you had paid a lot of money for marketing for that week or that weekend, your rank was affected by that. Now, I will say this. In my experience, being on and I know people will disagree with this, being simply ranking, right, doesn't actually help you that much. Like, fewer people shop by the Amazon top 100 free list than I think that some people would give credit to. Most free books are now downloaded because people are directed to the link by something like by BookBub or by social media or something. And so you're not affected that way. You are really only affected because other people, within the small audience that shops by the top 100 free list. But it's scammy, and Amazon does not do enough to deal with this. surely there has to be a way for them to have a, you know, a slightly better filter or whatever. If it is so easy to spot, and it is, the parameters are, you know, as David laid out and as you explained, you can spot them a mile away. Why can the Amazon bots not spot them a mile away? And I mean, even like we all get these emails from Amazon on the regular saying, please confirm your copyright, please ascertain, you know, blah, blah. Why can they not do that for these books too? It's
You'd think
maddening.
a simple filter based on pages, right? Since
Totally.
at the moment that they're easily found because of how many pages there are, you know, even if it pulls up book bundles or something, because as long as they've got someone to go, oh, that's obviously a book bundle, or flick, you know, I don't know how many, you'd need people to actually look at these ones that are flagged. But yeah, I guess it's more money, more people. But Amazon have more money, you know.
Yeah. Well, but you know, the Amazon, we always need to remember that it is not Amazon's goal to be a high quality bookstore. It is Amazon's goal to get as many clicks through their ecosystem as they possibly can. And I don't think they care if the clicks come to them because of fake books or not. I honestly don't. The other problem is that even when you can get human eyeballs on something at Amazon customer service, those eyeballs may actually not know anything about publishing. And Amazon has been a consistently good source of revenue for me over the years. I don't want to bash them too much because with all of these problems also comes great innovation and, huge marketing reach for Kindles in general. All of that, mad props to Amazon. But it would be great if there were people who were employed by KDP who actually understood what it was like to publish a book through KDP. That would be amazing. And they seem to lack that. Like they should publish some books themselves, like How to Provide Mediocre Customer Service. I don't know what the title of the book would be, but they should just for funsies publish a few books through the KDP system. That should be part of their on the job training the first week of their hire. They all need to, put something together and put it up for sale. And then they would understand what it is like, It's the latest one is and I think we talked about this last time, didn't we? Their copyright demand. So they have every so often they change the language inside their standard emails that they send out. And the current standard language for their copyright assert or whatever, please confirm you hold copyright for this. It doesn't include the possibility that your book was published by you before. That's not, you can't just say that you have always copyrighted. And it's ridiculous because that is often the case, right? So the most common answer is explicitly said, and by the way, we no longer accept this as an answer. And it's but that is the answer. That is the only explanation for the situation. And the way around it is so maddeningly simple, but also ridiculously stupid. You just have to reply and use exactly the words that they have asked for. But if you say anything other than those exact words, they won't accept it because they are looking for those exact words in exactly that phrase. And so you have to copy and paste and then you're good. It's ridiculous.
Oh, joys. But we don't disagree. No, I better not use double negatives or I'll confuse myself. Amazon still makes us good money, right?
Yes. We still love Amazon. Amazon is not that we're the parents and they're the kid at all, but they're the they're the really gifted kid who is refusing to go to university or something. It's you could do so much with your life. I don't know. The analogy falls apart.
Oh, I don't think I would be that parent.
No, neither would I. Not would any writer.
Yeah. Okay,
You're follow your heart. Go to Bali.
Maybe not barley, but yeah. Let's
Mm.
see. Moving along to our last item. Hoopla Digital wants to change library lending of ebooks. So at the moment, the traditional model, I say traditional, it's only been in place for about a decade, for library lending of ebooks is for the library to acquire an ebook from, say, Overdrive, and they give them one DRM'd copy, which they can then lend to only one user at a time. And just like they would with a print book, and just like print books, the library pays a fixed upfront price, right? So Hoopla want to change that model so that libraries can lend an unlimited number of ebooks to users. So multiple users can be reading the same ebook, unlike at the moment where it gets passed along. So this is a benefit for users, publishers, and maybe in theory authors. However, the library will be the ones footing the bill, as this service from Hoopla will be a pay-per-use model. So, Zoe, please impart your wisdom.
Yeah, so I think that libraries with fixed budgets aren't going to leap for this kind of idea. And if they do, they would be looking for some sort of spending cap on each title, which
Mhm,
in effect is exactly the same thing as, buying 4 or 10 copies for through Overdrive.
mhm.
It's the same as any new service. They're trying to differentiate themselves inside the market, and I get that, but I call it much ado about nothing. The other thing is that there's a lot of, and the passive voice did a good job of digging into the concerns about how authors would get paid for this.
Or not.
Um, be, or not, as is often the case. Speaking of, we started the show with bad contract language, and we're going to end the show with bad contract language, because these are not technically sales, but the concern is that publishers would try to call them sales and then pay for them under the very restrictive ebook or the ebook royalties, as opposed to other licenses, which are often set at a much higher royalty rate.
Oh, are they?
Often, yeah,
Oh.
because yeah, that was right at the end of the passive voice article.
Oops.
Um, some of the older contracts, ebook sales are like awful. And because they didn't know, right?
Mm,
When these contracts were written 20 years ago, they could not envision this. And so that was a gimme. Oh yeah, you could have 20% or 30% of other licensing, right? Blah, 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 thinking that it would never be applied to anything. Well, now that is probably the most accurate place for these borrows to be applied. But they're being called sales,
sales.
even
Mm.
though it's not a sale. It's not a sale. And that's also concerning. But my biggest thought is that it's a lot of energy being spent on something, when the reality is that libraries don't have unlimited budgets,
No.
and they're not likely to sign up for something where they don't know what the bill is going to be, because they have set budgets that they need to manage their acquisitions inside of.
Yeah, and who knows what book is gonna, be
Mhm.
popular or in demand. And if they do go with this Hoopla model and implement, like you said, a cap, that means that anyone who's still wanting to read that book can't read that book. Whereas in the existing model, they will eventually be able to read that book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's a really good point. Because like I borrow books I borrow books digitally from my local library, and you just borrow a bunch of books. Like, it's no hardship to me that I have to wait to read the latest Sandra Brown book, for example, right? That
Mm.
because I'll just read a couple of other books, and then when I get the email saying, "Oh, it's my turn and it's now available for me to read," it's exciting. Like, I mean, that's
Mhm.
just the way it is with any book. They sound like they're reinventing a wheel that didn't need to be reinvented.
I think they were maybe looking at it from a user's point of view and from a money-making point of view.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And speaking of libraries, I'm not actually a member of any library. I believe the Capital City Library does have lending of ebooks, but I don't know if they're for Kindle or if they're limited to the Kindle app only or a special app or whatever. But anyway, books are so ridiculously expensive in New Zealand. Like for a paperback, you're looking at least $28, depending. Hardcovers are usually about $40. That I am very happy to pay the 99 cents to 9.99 for the ebook.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having to toddle off to a library even to do that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Now, one benefit of the Hoopla system as opposed to Overdrive is that some of the Overdrive prices per ebook are actually a lot more expensive. Like the ebook through Overdrive for a library often costs 3 to 5 times as much as the retail price, because they understand that it's going to be read over and over and over again, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But what if it isn't, right? What if a library acquires a book that's $9.99, but they pay $50 for it, right?
mm-hmm,
That would be probably pretty standard, or $30 maybe. And then what if it's only borrowed once or twice, right? So
mm.
in that case, paying retail or even less than retail for a borrow, that would actually be more financially beneficial. So it would really depend on how much the books are going to be priced for these borrows through Hoopla versus an owned license through Overdrive.
It really sounds like maybe that someone needs to offer some kind of combined option so that you
Mm-hmm.
get pay-per-view just so you, and then when it hits a certain number, the people go to the library, hey, this is apparently really popular. You might want to put it on the unlimited plan and just
Mm-hmm.
pay this up front. Or if it's not popular, just keep it on the pay-per-view kind of option. So that's kind of like the two tiers there almost.
Yeah,
Yeah, why can't
that is
someone
a
do that?
smart idea. And then give Erica half of the,
Oh, yes, 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 yes.
royalties or whatever for the idea. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I need the money. Is that everything we've got for those 4 items there, or is there anything you
Yes,
want to
I think it
revisit?
is.
Okay. I just want to give a heads up to our regular listeners, the ones who are probably looking forward to Xavier and Mai's monthly update at the beginning of each month. We won't be doing it for July, mainly because we really, really, really thought we were going to be really active with writing and publishing, especially after our interview with Monica. We were like, oh my God, we've got to do this. And we did go out the next day and start writing. But X, I'll let X explain his own reasons when he's back on. But my landlord decided he's selling the house. And he told, well, we were told last week, and it's a deadline sale. I don't know if you guys have those overseas, but in New Zealand, it means the seller picks a deadline and all offers have to get in at that deadline, and then they pick whatever offer they want and it gets sold. So in theory, in 2 more weeks, this house will probably likely be sold. He's asking for an exorbitant amount and he'll probably get it, but made me blink my eyes when I got told the amount. And I'm like, I'm not paying that much for this house. We will have 42 days to vacate the premises once it's sold, unless an investor decides to buy it. But they're totally marketing it to families and couples. So we think we'll have to vacate soon. So that has brought forward my husband and I's plans to buy our own house in the new year to now. Whew. Now, everyone has told me that there's nothing worse than selling a house. I can tell you that there is. The one thing worse than selling a house is having your home sold out from under you by your landlord, because there are so many people you have to deal with that your landlord does not. Yeah. So it's been fun. We've had a week of it so far already. And we're also looking for a place to live, which will, of course, is stressful for us and extra work for me because my husband's stressing too much. I've decided to take over most of the load from him, and he just has to go to work and look at pretty houses on the internet. That's his job at the moment. And I will deal with the real estate agents and everything else. So yes, so I will be busy. I am busy and won't unfortunately have all that much time. The promos that I run are still going ahead. We have one coming up in July. So if you're a romance or an erotica romance author and would like to be involved in our multi-author cross promo, you still have time to get in. The website for that is datepromo.com/authors. And that's date because it stands for download all the ebooks, not because, you're single or even married and looking for someone to hang out with, in an extra comfy romantic way. No, you are only getting comfy with your Kindle. Anyway, so yes, the podcast will be disrupted for a while yet, but hopefully all will be worked out. And no, I won't say come buy the house I'm living in because, as I said, we wouldn't buy it, and we wouldn't wish anyone we knew to buy it. No, it's not awful. It looks pretty and aesthetically pleasing, and it's been nice to live here for 7 odd years. But we just know what needs to be done, and it'll cost a bit. So yeah. Oh wow, I rambled. Why didn't you stop me, Zoe?
It was interesting, and that is the whole point about a podcast, is to tell interesting stories. And so
yeah, and it also means you guys will no longer be able to see Mickey the cat, my neighbor's cat, because we won't be here, and I actually feel sad about it because he doesn't know, what's going on. He doesn't know that one day he'll turn up, meow at the door, and wonder why people aren't letting him in the house. He's gonna feel a lot of loss. I hope he doesn't get depressed. But on the good side for me and my husband, it means we can actually get our own kitty cats to add to the family. But yeah, I feel sad about Mickey. Look at him, so happy. Okay, well, that's it from us. Where can we find you on the internet, Zoe?
ZoeYork.com and AinsleyBooth.com. And that is Facebook. I'm always on Facebook and Twitter. Always on Twitter.
You are always on Facebook. I can attest to that.
Always when I should be writing.
Well, you just made a deadline, so you're allowed to have a little break.
No, I've blown my deadline. Did I not?
No, I didn't see that. I told you I've been busy. So I can't read all the Facebook.
Yeah, so no, I made my deadline for my first round of developmental edits for Pine Harbor #6, but then I blew my deadline on the revisions. And so right now, my editor has the first 69,000 words, and the book does not have an ending. I'm getting there. So I have until, what day is today? Tuesday? I have until tomorrow night. And I still have 2 chapters to write and 2 chapters to finish.
I think I recall you saying something about getting rid of the last 6 chapters or something. Was that what happened?
Yeah, so that was on Saturday, and I was supposed to have the book done on Sunday. So that didn't happen. So after I tweeted, my editor is also on Twitter too. So after I tweeted that I had cut the last 6 chapters and I was starting over again, just on the last 6 chapters.
Yeah.
She messaged me and she was like, right, so you'll just send me like the first half? I'm like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to send you the first, I actually sent her like the first 21 chapters. And so then I will send her the last 6 chapters when I finish them.
Wow. You must have not been happy with them to actually cut that many.
They just weren't right. They just weren't. And I was trying to force it, and it felt wrong. And when it feels wrong, it's got to go. That's the rule.
Fair enough, and good for you to sticking to your guns.
Anyway, that book comes out at the end of July. So I will, be talking about it on Facebook, I'm sure. Go find me there.
Yeah. So follow Zoe on Facebook or on Twitter,
Mhm.
or on this
Do you know,
podcast.
here's a fun fact about Facebook. You know how you can change your Facebook URL? Did you know that you can do it for profiles as well as pages?
No.
So you can give your profile, your like who you are on Facebook, you can give it a unique URL. So
Oh, okay.
mine is like, so my page, my professional face of Facebook is facebook.com/Zoe York Writes.
Mm-hmm.
But here's a little insight into my personality. My profile
Mm-hmm.
is facebook.com/resourceful Zoe.
Ah.
Because I like to be I like to be known as resourceful. My husband laughed at me for quite a while when I told him, when I admitted that that's what I had. He's like, nobody calls themselves resourceful Zoe, and I'm like, well, I do.
And
He's like,
husband's great.
you have problems. They're always honest, you know. You can always count on them for that. Mm.
I bet he's thinking
Anyway.
she needs to get a job. She needs to get a
Mm.
job. House. She needs to get a job. Oh my god. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So that's where you can find me. Is you can find me at facebook.com/resourceful Zoe.
It does sound familiar. I could agree with my husband there. I'm sorry.
And I highly recommend that everybody go and give themselves a unique URL and then come to my Facebook page and, share them with me.
Okay. That's an invitation to be as zany as possible. You've got to beat resourceful Zoe. Anyway, this has been Publishing Without Supervision podcast. You can find our website, which has summaries of all the news items we discussed, as well as links to all of the links we said we would link, because linky link, on pwspodcast.com. I am Erica Conroy, and thank you for Zoe, and thank you to our listeners and all viewers. Good night, Internet.